someone who's vice president is someone who Kabir Sokoto, the Christmas Day bomber,
Yeah.
was caught staying in this person's house.
Good day, welcome to another episode of What is Trending. My name is Angelo Himalayas, your anchor. Yes, it's no longer news, of course, that there has been, of course, something going round online and offline and in the lips of all Nigerians about the son of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinibu, Sheyi Tinibu, and his alleged acquisition of or purchase of a purported property worth $11 million. And furthermore, this particular event or this purchase of this property in London was somehow linked to the former governor of Osun State, talking about Adegboyega Isiaka Oyetola, who jointly own a company outside the country with Sheyi Tinibu. Of course, if you know Oyetola so well, you know that he is a brother to Asiwaju Ahmed Tinibu. That is that. Now, let me tell you what I have for you today. This investigative journalist known as David Hundeyin, the same David Hundeyin that was responsible for the exposition of the dual citizenship of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the president-elect, has come up with something more interesting this time around in the wake of the Sheyi Tinubu case. What does he say, or what does he have for us? He has come out to make expositions, various expositions you don't like to play with. Number one, he exposed Senator Kashim Shettima's link to Boko Haram, who is a terrorist group that have been responsible for insurgency in the north and the northeast. David Hundeyin exposed a particular story pertaining to Asiwaju's sons, names withheld, and their purported spending, let's say exorbitant spending with no ending. All right, sometime in 2014, 2015, Asiwaju's two sons, names withheld, at the ages of 22 and 23 years respectively, purportedly spent millions of dollars in acquiring a big property somewhere in Ohio. Now, this particular revelation is part of what David Hundeyin has to say, alongside the EFCC's dark activities and how they receive bribes from other members of the government and so on and so forth. He even projected the manner of how Tinubu's government is going to be. Let me allow you hear from David Hundeyin himself. Listen to lots of expositions he has for you.
The story that I published, which was titled From Job Lot, for example, two of his youngest children, who are now in their early 30s, but who at the time were in their early to mid 20s, both purchased, between 2014 and 2015, purchased real estate in New York City worth a total of about $5 million in cash, paid in full and upfront, right? And one of the points that I made in that story was that how is it possible that a 22-year-old and a 25-year-old with no known source of income, no recognized employment of any sort, are in this situation where they're paying cash, full payment? This wasn't a mortgage thing or anything like that. That would have been ridiculous enough on its own, but you are paying $2.2 million or $2.5 million cash upfront for luxury real estate, deluxe real estate that most Americans will never be able to aspire to own in their lives. And you're 22, you're 25, you've never held a job, you're fresh out of music school. What is your source of income? Exactly. Apart from the fact that you happen to have a father who used to be a Nigerian public official who has been linked to drug trafficking. So this is just more of the same if you have been following this story. However, I guess the real significance here, from the point of view of international media, is that for the first time there is sort of something that is more than just circumstantial evidence that is linking Bola Ahmed Tinubu to the sort of large-scale kleptomania, state capture, corruption, whatever you call it, that we've all known that he's guilty of, but sometimes has been sort of difficult to prove because he always acts through proxies.
Yeah.
So in this case, if you read the story on Bloomberg, what created a break in the case or a break in the story for them was that the company in question, the shell company, I think it's called Aranda.
Aranda, yeah.
That the reporting requirements surrounding the ownership of the company changed. So basically, British regulations changed, which made it mandatory for the ownership of that company to be disclosed, and that's how it will be conclusively linked to Sheyi Tinubu. So that's what, it's not as if we didn't already know that this, he has been linked to that particular property. I mean, when I was researching some of the stories I was publishing last year, that particular property came up. That property at 32, is it West Grove?
Yeah.
Grove End.
Grove Road.
Yeah, Grove End Road in North London.
Yeah.
That particular property came up, and the issues surrounding it, the fact that it was acquired by Egboyega Oyetola, who himself has a deeper relationship with Tinibu than has been publicly disclosed. That in itself might become a story later on. And the fact that this property was initially obtained by Kola Aluko, who was linked to Diezani Alison Madueke, obviously. And basically, after the Buhari administration made a huge song and dance about going after Diezani specifically, as somebody who is part and parcel of the Buhari administration ended up obtaining it. This has been in the public domain for a while, but because that company, for the first time, has now been conclusively linked to Sheyi Tinubu, that's what made it more significant from the point of view of global press. And then I'll quickly just mention this as well. If you follow the Dakwa versus Alpha Beta case from 2020, that particular company was also mentioned in those case files. So in the case summary, it was mentioned that there was a list of companies that was mentioned that Alpha Beta made this sort of unexplained transfers to, total, in the millions of dollars, right? And the contention at the time was that this is money laundering, that there was no explanation for these transfers. There was no reason why transfers of this magnitude were made to companies that were just completely unknown to anyone in the company. Who were the owners of this company? Nobody knew. So, you're just seeing transfers of $1.something million going out to some shell company registered, offshore, and you don't know who it's going to, why it's going there, which is, if you're familiar with how money laundering works, that's a very, very heavy red flag. So this company was mentioned in those files, and they transfer, I forget the exact sum, but a transfer was also mentioned that the transfer to this company was made in the 7-figure range in US dollars. So what it again proves is that in addition to the fact that Tinubu's son is obviously linked to a corruption scandal that is linked to the Diezani issue and all of that, Tinibu himself, via his undisclosed ownership stake in Alpha Beta, is also directly involved in running this company, because I suspect that Tinibu being who he is, to protect himself, he would throw anybody and everybody under the bus. So the other defense might have been to claim that this is Sheyi Tinubu's stake, and that the Oga at the top doesn't know anything about it. But those Alpha Beta case files prove conclusively that Oga at the top, in fact, knows everything about it. The Oga at the top himself, there is no type of misbehavior, scandal. There's no type of negative thing that is not already linked to this person's name. So it's whether it's kleptocratic governance, state capture and theft on steroids, involvement in drug trafficking, involvement in electoral violence and thuggery, open thuggery, open affiliation with members of people of the underworld, organized crime figures like MC Oluomo, just anything negative you can think of. Someone who's vice president is someone who Kabir Sokoto, the Christmas Day bomber, was caught staying in this person's house. So when you have an administration which is filled with characters like that, and then despite all of that, they somehow make it to the point of swearing in, and they get sworn in, and they're actually in power. People like Tinibu, for example, had a very outsized amount of influence within the Buhari administration. So people like him or people around him were never really going to be, affected in any appreciable way. It was never going to happen. This goes beyond the EFCC, because the EFCC is basically the EFCC acts under the authority of the presidency. So if the people who have direct access to Aso Rock are of a certain type, there's very little the FCC can even do about it as an institution. But even within the confines of what the FCC could do, the truth is, over the past 8 years in particular, the FCC has become a total mockery of what we once thought it to be. Right from inception, it's important to point out that the EFCC has never been a particularly well-run institution. Not under Nuhu Ribadu, not under Ibrahim Lamord, not under what's the lady that came after him? I think was Aisha something. Not under any of those people, and certainly not under the immediate Abdurrashid Bawa and his predecessor. Certainly not under those two. But the thing is, from 2015 to the present specifically, the EFCC has become known as a cash and carry place. So it has always been used for sort of selective prosecution and going after, but it has always been used for that, right from when it was instituted by the Obasanjo administration. But over the past 8 years in particular, it's now public knowledge that if you get arrested by the EFCC, the only thing that is going to keep you either in their custody or basically keep you in their crosshairs and keep you in trouble is if you don't know how to negotiate properly and if you don't settle the correct people properly.
All right, that will be all for now. You've heard it from David Hundeyin and what he has to say. Lots of investigative journalists are coming out to make expositions on what's really happening in the country and what's eating up and denting the polity right now. The Nigerian political system is, I would describe it as having a sort of migraine headache where you could see more or less of no cure or no quick remedy, even if there are remedies that exist, none with a renowned efficacy can be spoken of. So the polity is dented, and we'll keep our fingers crossed and see if the judiciary will return the polity to its standard system as we trend or as we try to measure up with other developed countries. Now, first things first, don't forget that the first sitting of the tribunal is dated for 8th of May, sometime next week. So I will keep you updated with what the tribunal has to say. And of course, Labour Party legal practitioners and lawyers all over Nigeria are opting or are suggesting that there should be a live coverage or public hearing of the tribunal, which comes forth on 8th of May and 12th of May respectively. We'll see if the judiciary would actually adhere to these complaints and air the tribunal live on national TV. See you next time in my next video.